Apple's new iPhone is smaller and the most expensive? Let's see what's going on.
Welcome to the All Future podcast, where we talk all things Apple, tech, AI, various different things throughout the week. If you're subscribed to this channel and watching these videos, we really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed, we'd appreciate you subscribing. And today we're talking about a bunch of different Apple leaks. And the first one's quite an interesting one. And this is like kind of one of those niche, more expensive products, but one that you do actually see quite often, I think. And that is Airpods Max. And the rumor here is that they're basically going to be refreshed quite soon here.
We're seeing them at an incredibly low price. It's the lowest we've ever seen it so far. And they haven't refreshed the Airpods Max in a while, since their launch.
Never,
right?
yeah. They're still on the first gen of the Airpods Max.
Which is really weird because it's one of the only products left with Lightning. Mm-hmm. Usually everything now has USB-C.
Yeah.
And
even AirPods Pro have USB-C.
Yeah, so, but they've phased out almost everything. No iPhones, no iPads anymore. Everything has USB-C except this one product. Mm-hmm. So we know a USB-C version of this has to be coming. You use AirPods Max, right? Mm-hmm. Do you like them?
I love them. I think they're one of the best headphones, like over-the-air headphones you can get, and some of the best noise canceling you can get. There's all sorts of comparisons, and I've watched different reviews and tried different ones. But yeah, they're just really good. The only complaint I would have is just how heavy they are. But as far as a listening experience, and when you do like spatial and different things to like emulate Dolby, if you want to do that, I think they're great.
Nice. Is there anything you'd change for a refresh besides just the USB-C adapter?
Maybe make it lighter and a little cheaper would probably be good.
If they took out battery to make it lighter, would that be something that would like turn you off?
I don't know. I probably don't push it. I don't push it enough to have to be charging it often. Like I'm charging them, I don't know, every couple of days or something if I'm using them regularly. And they've definitely lasted me through like long international flights and stuff like that. So I guess that's probably the test. Like, can you get through an international flight and use it for most of it and have like full noise canceling going and everything? Once you get to that threshold, that's probably, they could cut the battery if needed. But I don't know. Some of the weight is the build quality. It's kind of like the Apple Vision.
Yeah. You want it to be made of aluminum. You want it to have that good feel in the hand. You want it to be heavy and feel like an expensive product. So if you're spending that much on it. Because you said, too, they're still retailing the same from Apple, correct?
Yeah, it's still $549 from Apple.
Which is a hefty price tag for headphones, especially when you're seeing the discounts that deep, $380. So, man, I like them. I see them everywhere. I just have never purchased them and felt it necessary. I'm an AirPods Pro guy. I like the noise canceling there. I like the ear tips, and I like that they're small enough to carry around and do things with. I've done major mixed reviews for music on AirPods Pros, just like when I'm out and about.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I've re-listened to on very nice speakers, and they do exactly what I need to. They do all the spatial things that you're talking about well too.
Yeah.
Is it worth the upgrade? Should I go pick these up somewhere?
I think, I have them right here. So you should try them after we do this podcast. And you'll see, they're great. And this transparency also is like, it's good on AirPods Pro, but it's kind of the best I've heard on AirPods Max. So it's really good.
I'll have to take a second look. I think at $550, I was like, I'll see what's happening.
So
but
$380
$380 is like pretty good. I'll have to check these out at this. But that wasn't the big story today. The big story today is new iPhone 17 rumors, and a phone we've never heard of before, the iPhone 17 Slim.
Yeah. This kind of coincides with the rumors we've been hearing, that they're going to probably put this in line with like what the new iPad is, where it's the thinnest Apple device ever. They're kind of going to go with that in all their device categories. But this seems like extra special. Or like this rumor seems like they're really going for it with Slim on this device, and it might actually be like part of the branding for it.
Yeah, it seems odd. It seems to be an in-between between the Pro and the Max. At 6.65 inches, the Max is 6.86 inches, and the Pro is 6.72 inches. So something right between there.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's going to have all the horsepower of the Max or the battery life of the Max or something that's going to elicit a $1,300 price tag for that.
Yeah.
So it's the most expensive phone in the lineup, where the Max is $1,200 and the 17 Pro is $1,100.
Yeah. And apparently one of the things talked about an LTPO display, low temperature polycrystalline oxide display, which is a special backplane technology. And we could go on and explaining the tech, but basically it's just going to make your OLED display better. And it does a better job with like adjusting refresh rates, which, what does Apple call that? They're like adjustable refresh, whatever they call it. ProMotion display, I think is what they call it. I think it's just going to improve on that a little bit. But then some of the 17 Pro model rumors, I guess these might be separate from the Slim, or maybe it's going to share these, that it will have 12 gigabytes of RAM, a triple 48 megapixel rear camera system. So each camera will have that, which probably enables more digital zoom options like in between that are still full quality. And then the A19 Pro chip. So yeah, this is super interesting to me that it would be like the Pro version would actually be maybe a little smaller and then thinner. So maybe it's something about the form factor. Once they're getting this into people's hands, it just feels a little better, a little smaller, and you feel more premium than this big thing.
That would be so crazy if it's the only one that they release with a thinner, better form factor.
Yeah.
That's a way to sell so many phones. If it's the only one, they're like, here, this is exactly like the 16 almost, but this one, the Slim, now this one's like the actual thin one.
Yeah.
We're only making one version of it, and it's $1,300. And I would definitely buy that at that point, because if it's the only one that's like the iPad Pro, I would definitely pick that up.
And so timeline-wise, is this, because we're coming up on the 16, which would be, I guess, the end of 2024. So this would be like the end of 2025.
Correct. This would be 2025. This is what we've been talking about, where we might have a full rollout of the Apple Intelligence features that we're hearing about now. So we've been talking about 16's not going to have everything. It's going to be slowly rolled out over the next year, basically. We'll have the basic features.
Yeah.
But they're really boosting these things, like 4 more gigs of RAM, to get to that place where you can use these on-device LLMs in a way that's not, well, it's definitely going to burn up your battery, and it's definitely going to, burn up your processor. So we'll see how this actually handles that, and if they can get all that tech and all that battery into a slim model, and how something like a Pro model will handle battery life and things like that, depending on how many of these kinds of requests you're making in a day.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing, because you see that a lot, I guess, especially on initial releases of new big features on an iPhone, like when they add the new better refresh rate on the display. It's like, oh, it actually affects your battery life a little bit if you're using it all the time. And then you put it in low power mode and it turns that off to where it's a lower refresh rate. And so I wonder if there's something like that where users are going to be like, oh, it's actually, this battery doesn't last as long as the last generation because I'm using AI features constantly. And then like 18 or 19 will bump that up or figure it out or make it more efficient or however.
The Max phones will now rule the earth again, and I won't look silly having this gigantic phone. For everyone at home, I love Max phones. They're my favorite. I don't use an iPad. I own an iPad. I barely use it for anything unless I need to do something with the Apple Pencil that needs Procreate. But I love watching on my iPhone. I love having one device that just has everything. I even love working on it when I can get a chance to, do spreadsheets or something quick, But that Max size is definitely my favorite. So
yeah. So they might shrink that a tad on the display, I guess, on the Pro Slim model or whatever they're going to call this.
I'm sure it's not going to be called that, but whatever it ends up being.
What do you think about that as a lineup, like complexity-wise? Because this is now reminding me of like the iPad, where you have like the iPad, you have the iPad mini, you have the iPad Air, you have the iPad Pro, and somehow the iPad is cheaper than the iPad mini, and it's like all that kind of confusion. And so now we're going to have the normal iPhone SE, actually, which we'll talk about in a second, which has new rumors. And then we're going to have the iPhone like 17 Plus potentially, then 17 Slim, 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max.
It's pretty confusing.
That's a lot.
And then if they're smart, they'll cut one of these, and there's not going to be that option. But they have pricing on all of it in the rumors, so we'll see what happens. We never know until it actually happens. But you just mentioned the iPhone SE, which is on the opposite side of the spectrum, the smaller phones. But actually, with this new rumor that we got, it might not be the smaller phone anymore. They're talking about putting it in the chassis of the iPhone 16, and this is rumored to be available in 2025.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, because I think I don't know, a certain draw for the SE, I think, for customers is the fact that it has some older stuff. So one of the things this is changing, or two of the things, are USB-C from the current Lightning. So technically there is still a device they sell with Lightning, which is the SE. So it's going to upgrade to USB-C. Don't think anyone's going to have a problem with that. Maybe a couple people will be upset because now you have to get a new cable, but you probably already have a USB-C cable at this point. And then there's the change where it's getting bigger, and then it's eliminating Touch ID and instead going to be going with Face ID, which is the first SE with that. And so, yeah, I think the SE has it's the cheaper option. So for plenty of people, that's what they get because they need the cheaper option. But for some people, I think there's also like, I just like the home button. I like having a home button still. So this is going to be getting rid of that. And then I like it the smaller, and this is getting rid of that as well. What is it going up to? I think it's like 6.06 inches with OLED from 4.7 inches. So that's a huge
massive
increase.
I know people who love their little form factor of the SEs. And they upgraded to the SEs from the iPhone 6 or 7 or whatever. They had that for 5 years. They hated the fact that they had to upgrade. They hated the fact that, they want a home button. They don't like Face ID. They don't like Touch ID. They don't want Apple to have, their security things out there. So I don't know. And they just like the small phone that fits in their pocket or whatever. I don't know that there's going to be no backlash from those kinds of people when you introduce this bigger phone for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, though, it's all just Apple knows what they're doing with their data behind the scenes. So they're like, oh, we're still going to sell this many phones. Or we only sell X number of SEs. And the biggest complaint we get from customers is it isn't big enough. And now we're fixing that. And people will just bite the bullet and do it anyway. That might be what the other case is here. But some other features that will be coming to it is an all aluminum chassis, a single rear 48 megapixel camera. So they're going 48 across the board. And one thing that should enable is that you have a 1X and a 2X on the SE now instead of just one single camera. And then the launch date is going to be between March and May of 2025, aiming for $499 and $549.
This is what I think is crazy.
What?
This is what I think is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to have a launch of an iPhone 16 in like September. And then you're going to put almost all of the same features into that and charge half the price almost. That is insane. Or like, I think a 16 is going to be $799. That's usually what a flagship basic phone is.
Yeah.
So even, $400, $300 less than that, that is a huge price gap to what is essentially, if you're going to make it still a 6-inch screen, it's almost the same phone for people in the range of people who are going to buy an iPhone or an SE. Like that's, they're looking at almost the same thing. It's like, well, do I really need all the features of the 16? I could just buy the SE. So that launch date, so close, like within 6 months, seems like insane to me. Like that seems like a really weird business decision to make on phones that are very similar.
And it's been a bit since they refreshed that one. I think at that point it will have been 3 years once it's launching, because the last one launched in March of 2022. But it's supposed to have the A18 chip, which would be matching the iPhone 16. Maybe there's a slight difference there with RAM or something, but it seems like it'll have pretty much the same capabilities. So I'm curious then if it will have reduced AI capabilities that are like, Apple claims it's due to the chip having less RAM, that it can't handle it, but we also know they might just be software locking it to get people to upgrade. And maybe that's their like first big test of like, because we'll be 6 months into the iPhone 16 or whatever when this launches. So maybe that's their first big test of like, do people pay an extra $300 because this is capable of AI features versus the SE is not? That could be something.
Yeah, or I kept thinking about this too. If it is AI capable, it might be our first sign of seeing the monthly fee for the AI capabilities. Because at $500, $550 for a hardware device, like you're not making a lot on that, especially if you're putting all of that in there. So you really got to make it up somewhere else. Even at $800 or $1,000 per these devices, like these AI features are costing billions and billions in R&D and infrastructure build out. So like thinking that it's not going to come in the form of some kind of like monthly software fee, like we paid for iCloud, Apple is a software as a service company right now.
Totally.
And they creep that, payment up every year. And
And we just kind of get the email and go, huh?
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
I guess
and
I have to.
It used to be like, iCloud is now like $3 instead of $2. And now it's like, okay, for the family plan, it's like $30 or $40 now. And then, you don't end up using half the things that are on the list. And, so this is definitely getting rolled into one of these services. And depending on which phone you have, the plan might be more expensive or not. We'll see how they choose to roll this out. But expect these Apple intelligence features to 100% be paid features.
And I know people who have these services and don't know that they have these services. Like they have an iPhone, and then I'm like, oh, have you seen that Apple TV Plus show? And they're like, oh, I don't think I have that. And I'm like, let me see. And I open it. I'm like, you're totally subscribed to this. And it turns out they're on a plan that they didn't realize includes it. So there's tons of people subscribing to Apple services.
I embarrassingly
and not fully
did not know a feature that you and Matt told me. I did not know that you could ping green text to your Mac computer, and then it was just one button press to be able to do that. And so I've been switching to my phone. I made all these use cases for like the new screen sharing in iOS 18. I was like, man, now you could finally open up your phone and text people on Android. And both Matt and Ryan jumped on the text thread and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you've been able to do this for years. And I'm like, no, you have to like switch to your phone and then it'll send it as an SMS. They're like, no, you press one button in the settings and it'll like ping the phone to send these things. So you guys changed my life.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You can't learn all the features all the time. So
So speaking of AI stuff in Apple, you're talking about like them doing some sort of subscription for it. Will they do that because of the SE's price? And I think we won't see that for a bit because they're just going to treat it as a loss leader for a while, and we'll see how long that lasts, where they're willing to just dump billions into AI development and just sell the devices even though they're losing on AI. But it will probably come to a head at some point because it has to, and we're seeing that right now with Apple TV Plus, which has been a big thing to get people to sign up for that and to potentially drive sales of their devices, I guess, or their services that include Apple TV Plus. Because this week we saw Apple scaling back on their spending because they've spent over, I think, $20 billion in original programming, and they say they've had limited success. Now, there have been plenty of successful shows on Apple TV Plus, like Ted Lasso is one of the big ones.
I've seen Ted Lasso.
Yeah, you've seen Ted Lasso? Good. It's a good show. And then there's plenty of other ones which we can get into, but
Severance.
Severance
is great. Severance season 2 almost out.
That's coming out early next year.
What did you watch For All Mankind?
I didn't, but I want to. And they're 4 seasons deep on that show.
They're 4 seasons deep?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I missed on Apple TV. I watched The Morning Show. The Morning Show is good. We just talked about how both of us have music on The Morning Show. Ryan has played for the composition of it, correct?
Well, no, it was like a background scene. There's like a background scene where there's jazz playing, and I'm on the track. So if you check that out, I think it's season 2, and you're like on camera.
There's a New Year's Eve episode where one of the bands is playing for New Year's Eve, and that's my band.
That's super awesome.
Robert John is
that season 2?
Season 2, first episode of season 2. So
awesome.
We're both on The Morning Show.
Check it out.
We like Apple TV Plus, but
There's also Dark Matter I started watching. I haven't finished that one. I think it's done now. That has gotten pretty good reviews. I liked Silo. That's a good one. They've kind of had really like a hold on sci-fi shows. So if you're into sci-fi and just want a new show that's like going to be decent, Apple TV Plus seems to have them. And then Foundation I started. Haven't finished that one. That one's been pretty popular. It's pretty awesome.
But like everything else, it just comes down to numbers and subscription. And I feel like the streaming wars are now over, and everybody lost.
Yes.
We maybe got the golden era of streaming for the last 5 years or so.
We
got some really good TV. And now we're going to have to pay for it all because we're seeing everything come up with ads.
Yep.
We're seeing all those subscription prices creep up, and it's basically just cable 2.0, except we have a little more control over our programming, but still to have 4 or 5 streaming services, that's, $150, almost $200, depending on what you get.
That much?
Yeah.
4 or 5? I guess like
everything's sort of like almost $20 now. And then if you count like an ad-free tier, like a Hulu ad-free tier is much more expensive than, just the $15 to $20 a month.
Yeah.
YouTube TV is like $75 a month, but that includes a lot of stuff.
That's like the cable equivalent. It is pretty crazy. It's like that. For a while, it was like, oh my gosh, I don't need cable, and this is so expensive. I can just pay for Netflix, $10 a month, and I'm done. And actually, probably even less at a time, like 7 or 8. And now it's like, oh, but I need Peacock, and now I need Disney Plus, and now I need Apple TV Plus, and now I need this. And it's like, wait a second, I'm just subscribing individually to all these channels. Soon enough, someone's just going to bundle all these subscription services, and then it's like, oh wait, Comcast bundled my subscription services and I'm just paying Comcast.
They're having the same problem that the movie industry is having. You're spending too much money on these big bets that if they fail, then you're out like the whole $500 million or something.
Yeah.
So everyone tried to make these extremely, quality shows, and they had some hits and some losses, but the winners aren't paying for the losers.
Yeah.
And then so we're going to see an era of hopefully a lot more creativity and a lot less spending to make shows. So you might see a very low budget show go on, but that is very quality and is written well, or really has like a creator behind it who really believes in it and wants it to succeed. So, the story driven piece of it will come through a lot more than say like just the big budget SFX or, not SFX, VFX.
Special effects. FX, yeah, that works.
Anyways, but yeah, we'll see across the board. Just they'll consolidate into their shows that work. We'll see Harry Potter and House of the Dragon and these big shows on HBO.
Yeah,
we'll see Netflix with their flagship shows. But other than that, you're gonna see a lot of middle of the road programming, and some of those things will rise to the top and be awesome. So
yeah,
it'll still be good. Ads aren't great, and hopefully we never see that on the Apple side. But
yeah, but we might. Speaking of, one last Apple show that I'm gonna pitch because I played on it is Anything Peanuts. So they're all like the kids stuff, but I played drums in the trio on like the score for all of the Charlie Brown shows, which are now Snoopy. So the Snoopy show. Snoopy in Space, and then I wrote down all the specials. So for Auld Lang Syne, it's The Small Things Charlie Brown, To Mom and Dad with Love, Lucy's School, One of a Kind Marcy, and Welcome Home Franklin. If you watch any of those on Apple TV Plus and you hear the drums, that's me. So I like Apple TV Plus because they've employed me.
I remember being super excited for you when I found out that happened, because I love the Peanuts, I love the Charlie Brown Christmas special, and Vince Guaraldi, go listen to Vince Guaraldi if you don't know who that is. It's who did the Charlie Brown Christmas record and did the theme for Charlie Brown.
Great Lucy and
great artist. One of my favorite jazz artists and one of my favorite records to listen to of all time. So I was really excited that you got to carry that torch, and it sounds great.
Me too. Thanks, I appreciate it. But yeah, to finish out the streaming thing, one of the other issues I think is that there's just so much quality stuff as well, all from these different places, that we just don't have time. Like, I feel like it was different when you had network TV. Is there way more now? And or are we just more aware that there's more? I'm not entirely sure, because there's so many shows I'm getting recommended from people.
I will take you back to a time of network TV where AMC ruled the world, and there were only like 3 shows that mattered. It was The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, and those 2 things ruled the earth for a period of time. And there was HBO, but it wasn't as readily available. I don't know how big the Sopranos overlap is in there, but like there's some of those sorts of things happening at the same time.
Yeah.
But no one had HBO in a big enough quantity, And so you have these shows happening, and everyone's just watching those shows. No one's watching anything else, unless you're like a habitual TV watcher. You come home from work, you watch TV every night. You're gonna watch network TV. You're gonna have your favorite shows. Your NCISs and whatnot.
Yes,
but,
CSI.
But there were only like a couple big shows at a time, and once those shows were over, you moved on to whatever the next big show was that it was in season 2 or whatever. But
networks would like align as well. Like they know like this show's ending on this other network, so now we're gonna get the viewership from that other network starting our show.
And then so there was only a handful of shows that everyone watched. And now there's, like you're saying, there's so much good stuff everywhere. It's just so splintered, like, do I have time to watch House of the Dragon? I know it's good. I know this person likes it. And I tend to just go with, like, if someone recommends something to me, then I watch it. And because at least I'll get to talk to them about it, right? And so with Matt a lot, I'm like, what are you watching? So I could just get caught up on it. And I'll just watch it even though I don't like it, just so I can talk to him about it or something, you know?
Yeah.
And same with you. I'll just like go, are you watching this or what are you watching? So we can like have a conversation about it. But without that, it's almost not as fun. Right now I'm watching The Boys. Have you ever seen The Boys?
I've heard that you're like the fourth person.
It's very
to recommend
graphic.
it.
It's in its like fourth season, fifth season, but almost wrapping up. The next season is the final season. Okay. It's super over the top. I'm not like recommending it to everyone.
Yeah.
But no one else I know watches it, so I literally have to go to like forums on Reddit or forums online, and it's literally like the perspective of, you know, like Reddit's a bunch of teenagers and 20-somethings. And I'm like, oh, I just want to have a conversation with someone my age about The Boys.
All right, I'll watch it.
Okay. Ryan's gonna text me after episode 1 going like, what the heck is this?
I have a very specific reason I didn't decide to start it this week, and I'll save it for another video because it's ridiculous. But
the mystery lives on.
Yeah.
You watch the next video.
The one where we talk about Apple Vision coming up. But all this to say, like, this is a pattern we're starting to see of like tech companies going all in on something, and it's really awesome for consumers for a period, but it always comes around. And we're going to see the same thing with AI, and we may see the same thing with the new iPhone SE, which is awkwardly going to release almost to the middle of 2025.
I want that iPhone Slim.